Well, we're here on day 5 as we talk about the R part of being involved in ministry. My name's Tim McCowan.
And I'm Steve Troop.
As we are reading from 2 Timothy 1:6, it's a short passage, but what we really want to be saying is that Paul recognized and discerned in the Spirit what Timothy's gift was. And as he recognized this, sometimes we may not see our own giftedness. So this is a short passage. Let's just read it from 2 Timothy 1:6. For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. And so we sometimes lay on hands of people, and we ordain pastors that way. We ordain deacons that way. But do we have to have an ordination process for anyone to serve in the church?
No, and so the general practice of the church is, like you said, to ordain our pastors, elders, and our deacons. But the ordination is for a specific call by the church to be in a specific place of service to the church, right? But that does not mean that everybody else gets off free, right? Says, great, I'm not one of those, so I can just receive all the service. And then that's missing the point. So I think there's a specific call in the church to service, which we see in our pastors and our deacons, but then there's the general call by Christ to be a servant to all. And that is the commandment that is placed upon all believers, and should be what drives us to be people of service to one another, right, for the benefit of the church. And so as we look at this in Acts, you see that the church laid hands on the deacons to set them apart for a special work.
And that was just serving tables.
That's
that
right.
was just
That's
ministering
right.
to widows. And not that that's a small thing, but they were ordained to serve in the simply of serving the tables while the apostles could minister and pray.
That's right. And so as we continue to move through the lesson, we see that Jesus himself, he says that here in this text here from Matthew 20, it says, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great men exercise authority over them. It is not so among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be the first among you shall be your slave. So just as the Son of Man did not come to be served or ministered to, he came to serve and to give his life a ransom for many." And what Christ is saying is that same attitude is what's expected of the believers, right? So we are to understand that the salvation, that gift of salvation that we're given, is not so that we can now go sit on the couch and just flip through the channels, right?
Yeah, sit, soak, and sour.
Right,
that's what happens if we don't get involved in ministry.
We have been saved for service, and so we are now to take that gift of salvation and exercise it the way it was intended from the beginning. When we look through the scriptures, we see that the word for service or servant, diakonos, is used in different ways, diakonia and diakonio. So there's different applications, but in general, it's all the same work, right? It's serving. And again, a lot of those are in the general sense. We're not specifically speaking about the deacons of the church as an office, but we're just speaking in general service from one believer to another, right, for the edifying of the body. And so I think scriptures don't allow us to be lazy.
Right.
I think they truly call us to recognize what Christ has called us to, and to be actively about that business.
So if we were to summarize recognition from others, if you were to describe a person were to come to you and say, I don't think I'm gifted in anything, I don't really have a heart or a passion for anything, I don't really have that many abilities,
right,
how would you encourage that person to say there is still something that you can contribute to the church?
So I'm trying to remember the author, but I read, it was speaking mostly about pastors, but it was the recognition of the internal and external call to service, right? And that when someone's called to ministry, there's there's typically two parts to that call, right? There's an internal understanding that you're called to ministry, and you may have a passion about it. But if those outside of you don't recognize that same call in your life, then there's probably some more discernment that needs to occur.
Yeah, if you can't carry a tune in a bucket, you
Right.
probably ought not to be. And so sometimes the recognition may be, I don't think this is your calling.
All right.
But if everyone has at least one gift, they should use that one talent for the glory of the Lord and look for the one thing that can be recognized by others where you get affirmed in that area.
Right. And I think the other side of that, and a part of it, is that we may believe that we're gifted at teaching, but it takes someone from the outside to say, they recognize that gift, but maybe it's not in the context you're engaged in right now. It may not be adult leadership or adult studies. It may be more directed at our youth or our children, where you are more effective with your gifts. So sometimes we just need to be open to the mentorship of our fellow believers.
And we shouldn't get our feelings hurt if we aren't called to sing the solo.
Right.
Before we need to find where we can serve. Pastor Randy was at a church, and I remember him telling the illustration that a person came to him and he said, "This is my one talent." He said, "I can't do anything else, but I can do this." And I think that's what we need to be looking for, is that recognition from others to say, this is something that I can do. Tomorrow, we're going to finish this up and talk about our experiences. And I really want you to tune in, because we're not only going to talk about experiences in our church, but we're going to talk about our experiences in salvation. So I hope you tune in tomorrow. God bless.
Bye-bye.